Hi, grade 3. How are you doing today? Well, today we are going to take a reading comprehension lesson about plot and theme. We already took these lessons before, so you should know and be aware of these topics. So, what is a plot? Do you remember what is a plot? Plot is the important events that happen in the beginning, middle, and end of the story, and they must be in the sequential order as it happens from the beginning to the middle and then end. So, one more time, very easy. What is a plot? Plot is what happens at the beginning of the story, in the middle of the story, and at the end of the story. And it must be in sequential order, in correct sequence. Now, at the beginning, usually the author describes the characters and setting. In the middle of the story, the author usually introduces a problem that the characters have. And at the end of the story, usually the author explains how the problem was solved. Do you remember something like this? We had a plot diagram when we were reading the story, Pushing Up the Sky. And we explained to you that the plot has different parts. Exposition, which is the beginning of the story where the characters and settings are introduced. Then the plot has rising action, where the characters in the story have a problem, and step by step they think what they should do to solve the problem. Climax is the most exciting part of the story when something boom amazing happens, something shocking happens. That is called a climax. Then we have a falling action when the events are after the characters find a way to solve the problem, what happens afterwards. And we have the resolution, which is the end of the story, where usually author says that characters lived happily ever after. So this is a plot diagram. Plot is what? Plot is what happens at the beginning, middle, and end of the story in the correct sequential order. Plot has these parts: exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, and resolution. Now, do you remember the story Pushing Up the Sky? Well, in the exposition, we would say that the characters were Snohomish people and they lived in the west part of the USA. Do you remember? Now, rising action. What was the problem in the story? The problem was that sky was too close to the ground. And what did the characters do to solve the problem? The seven chief the seven chiefs, they gathered together and they thought of a plan. They thought that if they work together with animals, they will push up the sky. But when they started pushing up the sky, it didn't work. In the climax, the Snohomish people, the seventh chief, comes with a signal word Yahoo, and all the people push the sky together. The climax is when the Snohomish people push up the sky. Now, falling action is what happens afterwards, after the problem was solved. What happened afterwards? That people could see the small dots in the sky that were stars. These were the holes left by the poles that the Snohomish people used to push up the sky. And the resolution, the end of the story, is happy ending. All of the Snohomish people were happy with the sky being up in the where it should be. So this is what we call a plot. Do you understand? And these are the parts of the plot. But basically, that plot is what happens at the beginning, in the middle, and at the end of the story. Now, what is the theme? Theme is a message or a lesson that the author wants you to take away from the story. This is such a nice definition. When you read a story, after the story, you ask yourself, did I learn something from this story? Did the author give me some kind of a message, or did he teach me some kind of a lesson? And if he did, if you learn some lesson from the story, that we call a theme. Now, you ask yourself, what did the characters learn in the story? How did the characters grow? How did they change from the beginning to the end of the story? So, the theme is a central message that the author wants to give you. It's a kind of a lesson. Now, many times the author wants to teach about these different lessons like courage, honesty, love, friendship, forgiveness, loyalty, hope, equality, hard work, or teamwork. Now, I will give you example of a story. Oh, that's not important. Of a story, The Boy Who Cried Wolf. Do you remember that story? Once upon a time, there was a boy who took care, or he was taking care in the forest. He was taking care of the sheep. He was a shepherd boy. And he was up in the mountains and he was really, really bored. It was just him and the sheep. So the boy, he thought of something funny. He thought that maybe he could trick people. And what he did, he ran down to the village and shouted, "Wolf, wolf, wolf!" People came out from their houses and came running up the mountains trying to save the sheep, but there was no wolf. And the boy laughed. Some people even stayed with him and chatted with him for a while, so he thought it was cool. Few days later, he felt bored again. So he said, I'll do that same trick on the people again. So once again, he ran down the hill and shouted, "Wolf, wolf, help, wolf!" People came out of their houses with the sticks and any kind of weapons, running up the hill, but when they came up to the hill, there was no wolf again. People got angry this time. So the boy just silly laughed. He tricked people once again. Then, few days later, the real wolf came. The real wolf came and the boy ran like mad down the hill shouting, "Help, help! Wolf, 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 help, please help!" But do you know what happened? None of the people came out of the houses. Do you know why? They thought the boy wanted to trick them again. And that time the wolf killed many of the sheep that the shepherd boy, took care of. What did the boy learn in this lesson? He learned that if you lie to people, they will not believe you even when you tell the truth. So, do you understand what happened in the story? If you keep lying to people, then they will not believe you. Even then, if you say the truth, they will not believe you. So the author wants to teach through this story that when people lie, the people will not believe them anymore, even if they tell the truth. Do you understand what is the theme? It's a lesson that you learn from the story. Now, do you remember the story What About Me? That was also a story where we had a theme. And what did the boy learn in the story? He learned that everyone needs something, right? That every person in this life has needs. That's what we've learned in the story. That was the message or the theme of the story, What About Me? We also read the story Prudy's Problem and how she solved it. Boys and girls, what was the theme of that story? What did you learn from the story Prudy's Problem? Did you learn something? Yes, we have learned that people should be tidy and neat. If you want to find things in your place, in your room, you should keep your room tidy and neat. Because Prudy was not tidy and was not neat, and that was causing a huge problem. Her room exploded, right? So, what did you learn from the story? If you want to find something in your room quickly, you need to be organized and neat. Very good. That's a theme of the story. So, what is a plot? Plot is what happens at the beginning, in the middle, and at the end of the story. And what is the theme? Theme is the message or a lesson that the author wants to teach you. Let's go to your readers and writers notebook. I'm sorry, I made a mistake. Readers and writers notebook, page 419. Are we ready? If you need a time to get the book, pause the video and then continue, please. So, we're going to read a passage and complete the questions. Listen to the story, please. The ants felt sorry for the grasshopper. He had saved no food and was starving, so they shared what they had. The grasshopper swore he would remember their kindness and repay them someday. When summer came, the ants were playing outside and accidentally hurt themselves. How would they gather their food? Just then, the grasshopper stopped by. When he heard what happened, he told the ants to climb on his back. The ants told the grasshopper where to go and what to gather. Soon, the trio had all the food they needed for the winter ahead. One more time, but a little bit faster. You can just listen. The ants felt sorry for the grasshopper. He had saved no food and was starving, so they shared what they had. The grasshopper swore he would remember their kindness and repay them someday. When summer came, the ants were playing outside and accidentally hurt themselves. How would they gather their food? Just then, the grasshopper stopped by. When he heard what happened, he told the ants to climb on his back. The ants told the grasshopper where to go and what to gather. Soon, the trio had all the food they needed for the winter ahead. So, let's go and complete questions number 1, 2, and 3. What happened at the beginning of the story? Read the passage here, from here until here. What happened in the story? At the beginning, if I will ask you, boys, what happened, girls, at the beginning of the story, what will you tell me? You will tell me that the ants felt sorry for the grasshopper because he had saved no food and he was starving, so they shared what they had. That's the beginning, but in the short way. The ants shared their food with the grasshopper. Now, what happened in the middle of the story? See, from here, the grasshopper swore he would remember their kindness, and here, when summer came, the ants were playing outside. How they got hurt, and now they were thinking, how will they gather the food? That, and then just then the grasshopper stopped by. So what happened in the middle of the story? Which is the most important event in the middle of the story? What happened to the ants in the summertime? The ants were playing outside and hurt themselves. That is in the middle. That is very important part in the middle of the story, because now they were in trouble. They had a problem. How will they solve the problem to the end of the story? So, what happened at the end of the story? Just then the grasshopper stopped by. When he heard what happened, he told the ants to climb on his back. The ants told the grasshopper where to go and what to gather. Soon the trio had all the food they needed for the winter. So, what happened at the end of the story? Of course, the grasshopper helped the ants and they gathered the food together. Or, like this, the grasshopper carried the ants on his back and helped them to gather the food. You can write your own sentences if you want to. To retell the whole story from the beginning to the end, you just think of the most important events and write them down. Are we done? Okay, let's go to the big idea of the story or theme. What did you learn from the story? Did you learn something from the story? You see, at the beginning of the story, the ants felt sorry for the grasshopper because he had no food, right? So they shared the food. And he said that one day maybe he will repay them the kindness. And in the summer, he had a chance to repay their kindness because when they got hurt, they needed help, right? And the ants helped them to gather the food. So what did we learn from the story? We've learned that if you help somebody, maybe one day they will repay you your kindness. They will help you back, right? Very good. That kind of theme is called one good deed deserves another. What does it mean? One good deed, if you do something good for someone, that deserves the repayment. It deserves another good deed. So the people should pay you back or give you repay the kindness back. Or you can simply write, when you help someone, they will help you back one day. That is the theme of the story. What did you learn? We've learned that if you help someone, one day they will help you back. That is the theme. So one more time, plot is what happens at the beginning, middle, and end of the story. If you want to make the plot a little bit harder, you divide it into the different parts like exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, and resolution. What is the theme? Theme is a lesson or a message or a big idea of the story. What did you learn from the story? That's it for today. Thank you.